Hi everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to continue on with the psychosocial hazards within the workplace. And I want to have a look at number 8, organisational injustice. Organisational injustice, you may have inconsistency between managers and supervisors. You know, some managers and supervisors are very quick to sack people, remove them from the workforce. Some supervisors and managers are wanting to ensure they get all the facts before they make any decisions. This is actually happens within the workplaces a fair bit. So one thing we do need is we need that consistency between our managers and supervisors, so workplaces can have confidence within the decisions that get made. We obviously have to have procedures to ensure that we follow. So that consistency is a key point with supervisors and managers. Underperformance from the workforce is poorly managed, and you know when we don't manage underperformance, the rest of the work crew can actually see that. They can actually see that certain people don't get treated the same as them, and when it comes to performance. Call it what you may, favoritism, be it the purple circle, for want of a better explanation, or there's just laziness on part of the management team to actually manage performance within the workplace. Good organisational justice will improve the output of the organisation. It improves commitment by the workforce because they see that the managers and supervisors are committed to ensuring everyone is treated the same under the disciplinary and performance management procedures. One thing we do need to make sure is we don't have a bias of work procedures as well, where some work procedures are actually designed or written for a certain gender. So we need to ensure that the bias of work procedures is removed. Next, I want to talk about traumatic events. Number 9, traumatic events or material actually as a psychosocial hazard within the workforce. So people are actually being exposed or witnessing traumatic events. And when we talk about being exposed, we're talking about investigations, etc. They may be a part of the ERT, emergency response team, and they could be exposed to traumatic events. And you know, something is really likely to be more traumatic if it's unexpected. Whereas if you're expecting to find or to treat or to be involved in a traumatic event, you have time to build that within your mind, that what you're going to be dealing with. Traumatic events and materials can include things like witnessing or investigating a fatality or a serious injury, abuse, neglect, or any other serious incident within the workplace. Um, we need to support the people, the victims of these traumatic events. Sometimes people don't want to go straight into counselling. However, I think it would be a really good idea if we provide the victim with a list of signs and symptoms that they may look for, even provide that with their family. So their family can pick it up, because a lot of the time we don't identify signs and symptoms within our own self. So our friends and family actually see that before we do. So even educating friends and family of the person who's been exposed, obviously all this has to be done with permissions and etc. And we need to ensure that if something does crop up in that regard, that the person is then attended to or seen. You could be listening to anything, or you can actually see traumatic materials that can set off a memory where yourself has been exposed, and this in turn can cause issues for you. Those traumatic memories resurface because you witness or you see or you overhear something. So traumatic events or material is number 9 on the list of psychosocial hazards in the workplace. Number 10, remote or isolated work. Remote and isolated work is an interesting one. You don't actually have to be in the middle of nowhere to be isolated at work. You could be working alone on night shift, cleaning offices. You could be working late at night. You could be working from home. It's work where getting help in an emergency can occur. It takes a long time to enter and exit. You're having limited access to resources because it may be on a odd hour shift, or you are working alone somewhere. And the support networks aren't there for you, be it peer support or whatever. So, remote or isolated work can also have very difficult communications and technology. They might not have that access to it as well. So, people don't have to be in the middle of the Pilbara or in the middle of Australia to be isolated. You can actually be within the city. And you'll be suffering from isolated or remote work. Um, Number 11 is the poor physical working environment. So, our workers are exposed to a hazardous working environment, be it noise, be it heat, cold, dust, etc. It's prolonged and frequent exposure. And, for example, even in an office setting, you could have someone in an open plan office that's actually situated next to the photocopier, and all day is this, and it really plays on the person's mind, or the person that's actually there. People that come to the photocopier want to have a chat, they can't get their work done, and we're actually exposing them to this psychosocial hazard. Um, it can also be PPE that isn't fitting correctly. So you might have to wear a lot of PPE, it might not fit correctly, or it's heavy, it's hot, you'll be working in this uncomfortable situation. So there might be a requirement for some rotation of work there. So, poor physical working environment. Number 12, yes, it's 2023 and we still have violence at work. Violence and aggression is number 12. Um, Someone could actually be assaulted or have physical harm threatened against them. It can be both physical and psychological. Now, the PCBU must ensure the workplace is safe. As far as reasonably practicable, if someone threatens someone with physical violence, it must be investigated. If someone reports to you that someone has threatened them, it must be investigated. We can't just say, look, stay away from him, give him some space, that's just him. We just don't accept this behaviour. And definitely physical violence needs to be treated straight away. It needs to be investigated and actions need to occur and happen. Number 13, bullying. Bullying can be overt, it can be covert. Uh, Bullying can be against individuals and it can be against a group of people, be it gender based, sexual orientation based, culturally. It's repeated and persistent. Okay, repeated and persistent behavior that goes on for an amount of time. It's unreasonable behavior that a reasonable person, having considered the circumstance, would see it as unreasonable. So, including that sort of behavior is victimizing, humiliating, intimidating, or threatening behavior. So, bullying is real, it is in the workplace, and it needs to be stepped on straight away. We need to address it straight away, but we need to remember that we we must investigate these behavioural psychosocial hazards because that person may be affected by another psychosocial hazard. So, for example, role overload, and therefore they're really bullying people underneath them to get the work done. Um, so, number 14, harassment. This is including sexual harassment. These behaviours can be gender based, they can be ableism, ageism, racism. Harassment is unacceptable. Sexual harassment is completely unacceptable. We need to ensure everyone knows that they can report this behaviour, and it's a safe space. And we must give them the opportunity to report it to the police if they wish, but it must be dealt with and it must be treated under the disciplinary procedures. And we must ensure that people can feel safe at work. Um, these behaviours around sexual harassment, that should be immediate investigation, and these relationships, these workplace relationships, must be investigated and find out what actually happened, so appropriate action can be taken. And support for all parties must be in place while these investigations go on. Well, look, that's the 14. What we're going to do in my next video, I'm going to start talking about the controls for some of these 14, or for all of these 14. But these controls, they're only the tip of the iceberg. You can put in whatever control you want as long as it's legal and within your jurisdiction's laws. But you're only bound by your imagination and obviously the laws within your jurisdiction. Well, hopefully we'll see you again soon. And like I always say, if you've got any comments or questions, please put them into the comment section, and I'll answer your questions. And I'll see you next time.